So today we definitely need to have a conversation about this attempted coup that occurred in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, 2021. There is a lot here. There is a lot of stuff that either hasn't been fully processed or put together, and I'm still one person trying to draw all the conclusions with all this. So I'm going to attempt to do the best I can with talking about all this information. So if it comes off a little disjointed in certain moments, I apologize. I'm trying to do the best I can. I have a lot that I want to try to go over and discuss, and so I'm not going to list it all off, but I'm going to just jump right in and start off. First and foremost, the Trump administration is responsible for this. The GOP has been clamoring for this type of reactionary behavior and constantly calling for this for a long time. People on the left knew from the moment he got into office, if not earlier, that he was someone to watch out for and that he was going to create this level of divisiveness and promote this type of reactionary behavior in this country. And if you didn't see it through all this time and all of the years of the xenophobia, the everything else, just the general fascism that has been Trump, then I don't know what to say at this point other than this is the conclusion of this for now. This is what we've entered into. The Trump administration, especially with this whole casting doubt on the election, the whole fraudulent vote thing, the constant push in this direction, has been making the stage for something like this to happen. Even if he wasn't someone that I saw as even more directly responsible, which to be honest I do, with his stand back and stand by comments, with his calls on Twitter for I'll see you on January 6th, and just so much more. We need to really take a look at this in much more detail to the level and extent that someone like Trump has pushed this type of reactionary behavior, that the GOP in general has pushed this type of behavior. And you've got these however many congresspeople and senators who are objecting to this election. And honestly, I don't know how we can sit back and just allow this to happen and allow them to continue to have this level of voice when they have supported the type of behavior that calls for an act of insurrection. And I need to address this. This was a coup. This was an insurrection. And this wasn't just some like Antifa dress up trying to create and dissent and, disorder and all that. I know there's some people on the right who are very much, in disbelief that, BLM isn't the bad guys this time and Antifa's not the bad guys. But this is what Antifa's been responding to this whole time. This is what you look like on the right. This is the threat that we've been worried about and, concerned about for a long time. And I think that needs to be brought to the table. And really, if you're on the right and you're worried that, and thinking this is the Antifa thing that's going on, you need to take an account of your table and need to start looking at some of these events over again. Start analyzing it. And start calling into question your side's beliefs and their entrenched position on things. Because this is not working. Your position leads to this. And again, I'm calling it a coup because it is. It is in the sense that even if it failed, even if there was no plan at the end of the day, this was still an unprecedented storming of the Capitol building, a building that has not been seized since the War of 1812. A building that, symbolically speaking, represents a lot of what the United States stands for. And I'm not even going to get to it from the leftist standpoint and revolution and all that, but looking at it from just the typical American perspective for a moment, the semi-nationalistic perspective. This is a building that's a symbol. And they tried to attack a place that was supposed to be a symbol of democracy. Did it have any real effect? No. And let's get into that in general and move away from that other section of things. So there were some of these reactionaries who were very much probably trying to take hostages. Somebody running in with zip ties and guns and clearly some sort of, equipment. This is a person who is very much prepared to take hostages and make this a much more long-term situation. Now, I don't know to the level of logistics this person thought about it, but it certainly wasn't effective, right? But that doesn't mean that it wasn't attempted. That doesn't mean it's not real. That doesn't mean you get to just cast it aside as not a valid situation that occurred. There were other people who showed up with firearms. And again, that first person I just showed had firearms as well. And DC is not a place that allows guns to come in. You're not allowed to open carry. You're not allowed to conceal carry without a permit strictly from DC. Therefore, you were in a situation where these people were actively bringing weapons in. And forget the gun laws for a minute. They brought weapons into the Capitol building. They literally stormed the Capitol with weapons. How you cannot call them insurrectionists, and I'm just so tired of, oh, they're protesters. They're just nonviolent No, they are insurrectionists. They came into the Capitol building with weapons. Now, there are a number of people in this reactionary situation that probably didn't have a plan. But they wanted to show their symbols off. I can't speak to what any person's individual motive was for being here, what they saw, what they experienced. I can only try to extrapolate from the details I'm seeing. But I also need to call this into attention. This is the first time that I'm aware of that a Confederate flag was flown in the Capitol building. This battle flag, what it represents, is the antithesis of what the Capitol building is supposed to represent. And again, I'm talking in symbols right now. I'm not talking in what they actually have done and what they actually represent in the violence of the state and all that stuff. I am talking merely from a perspective of symbols right now. This flag is a symbol of rebellion, of the South, of slavery, of white supremacy and white nationalism. And, call it states' rights if you want. But we all know what it is at the end of the day at this point, and we need to stop pretending. And from what I understand and from what I've seen, this is actually a picture of Sumter right here. The Sumter of which, Fort Sumter was named for. And having this flag juxtaposed to that is probably going to leave this image, honestly, in a lot of textbooks moving forward as U.S. history unfolds more and more. There's a certain irony here. There's a certain disconnect between somebody here who's trying to call themselves a patriot and protect democracy and call this country, their own, and is waving the Confederate flag in the Capitol building. It is literally the symbol of rebellion. You want to talk about the type of insurrection that needed to be squashed and handled? It wasn't BLM. It's not the protests in the streets that occurred this summer. It's what that flag represented. It's the fact that that was used on a battlefield against U.S. soldiers. The disconnect, the reactionary perspective that is just complete disconnect, is just hard to put into words sometimes. And if you want any more evidence that there's this white nationalist fervor, besides the fact that it's a majority white people that protested, like the overwhelming majority. I don't think I saw a person of color in the crowd that wasn't a newscaster. There were people during all of this that were mimicking and making fun of George Floyd right outside of the Black Lives Matter, exhibit that's going on there. This is your typical reactionary situation. And so now I need to address what the police response has been. This is inside of the Capitol, where police are just standing there, doing nothing. This, however, was the response shown to BLM protesters. And I don't have the time in this video to sit here and draw the comparison back and forth, but I implore you, go look at the New York protests. Go look at the Portland protest. Go look at the way BLM was treated for way less than storming the Capitol. The riot gear, the militarization of the police, the general violence that they were met with. And then compare it to how nice they are with what I'm about to show you. So, New York Times has a situation where they point out a Capitol police officer tried to reason with the crowd. You guys need to just go outside, he pleaded with a man in a green backpack. When asked why they weren't expelling the protesters, the officer said, "We've just got to let them do their thing now." Again, we really need to switch that framing of protester. These were insurrectionists. They stormed the Capitol building. These are insurrectionists. The cops also literally let them in. And I've heard some people make the claim that they were trying to pull the line back here, but I don't think they did. I'm going to play the clip and you can make your own judgment for it.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go.
That barricade got moved clear to the side. That barricade went straight to the right. They were not pulling the line back like some people have made the claim.
And they just breached the Capitol again.
This is the type of situation we were seeing. They just opened the gate. And this is a situation between the insurrectionists and the police on the Capitol. And you've got a little bit of violence there, you know. The police are hitting a few people, but the level of restraint I am seeing. Right there in the center. Somebody's grabbing the person's club. Are the other cops swinging? Are the other cops standing there? No, they're all just backing up. They don't have their line held. And I'm not buying this. The police have been capable of holding lines way better than this. Meanwhile, you've got the Trump supporters swinging, punching, throwing things at the police. You've got, you know, that red gas that they let out. I know there was some sort of flashbang explosions being thrown at the police, and this is how gentle they treat them. I know you have the line right here, but they held that, and I have seen police have multiple lines. You had stairs here. Do you know how easy it would have been to hold the stairs, to start firing rubber bullets, to start firing blanks down, to start throwing tear gas and, you know, flanking them out? They didn't do any of that. And I get the idea that, oh, it's bad optics or it's bad for everything and like, but this would not have been the same thing if this was the left. This would not have been the same thing if this was Black Lives Matter. This would not have been the same thing if people of color were making up a good chunk of that crowd. It just wouldn't be. We've seen it historically. We've seen it this summer. And then, to make matters worse, they're sitting here taking selfies with the police. And what that person was saying, I'm not going to explain for reasons, but it's some right-wing equivalent of ACAB. If you're familiar with that. Let's see. Oh, and this is another genuine, moment right here where you have some cop in riot gear and everything just escorting a insurrectionist down the steps. Chill as can be.
Occupying the center steps and also the south end steps.
Holding this person's hand and walking them gently out of the building.
Now you see the police kind of walking them slowly inside the building.
And even CNN just said it, walking them very slowly. When's the last time you've seen that happen in a leftist protest? But we're the ones villainized, on the left. But this is the kind of thing, again, that we've been trying to protect from. This kind of behavior. Again, it's this that we're worried about. It's this. This is what is Antifa's responding to. This is what Antifa is responding to. This is what Antifa's responding to. If you need to see it clearly, it's this storming of the thing that we're worried about. It's this storming of the Capitol. It is protecting lives and a way of life. It's coming out against this, too. The media getting their cameras destroyed. Wait, let me start that over. The great upholders of law and order and property rights, everyone. Attacking the cameras and attacking everything. They broke the glass on the buildings. And every channel has been just, oh, they're just protesters. They're just protesters. They're just your good old people. And there just reaches a point where you see enough of this and you get fed up. And so this is one of the insurrectionists putting his feet up at Nancy Pelosi's desk, for what I understand. The following image was somebody stealing a podium. And here's people clearly showing that walls don't keep people out if you really want to get in. Now look, I've shown a lot here. I'm sure that there's still a lot to go over and talk about, but I kind of want to draw this out from the perspective. Well, actually, one more thing that I want to talk about is the fact that nobody here was really wearing masks. And this is a population, unfortunately, because they're right-wingers who don't seem to believe in pandemic, that are more likely to have the virus. So we can also talk about the details at some point about the potential for biological warfare having occurred here, because they could have spread the virus into the Capitol building. And there were potentially explosives that were left in the building. They had to search that and go through all that. And it's just, when I look at all of this connected, you draw the line from Trump getting elected to where we are now, 4 years later. It just seemed so apparent, and a lot of the media has been so shocked. Oh, this is the darkest day in American history. How could anybody have expected this to happen? How could this have been a possibility? We knew this was happening. The left knew this was happening. And I honestly believe that there's no way that the CIA didn't know this was happening. This is the business of organizations like that. They do this in other countries. They set up coups like this in other nations. They know what to look for. They know the signs. We have the cellular data. They have all that information. All the people who are conspiring to, do certain things or not do certain things. And I need to speak to this also. The fact that this pittered out as quickly as it did is a symbol and sign that this reactionary movement really didn't have an end goal here as a movement, right? And it's typical reactionary stuff. Attack, be violent, shout the same phrases, attack the cameras, say fake news, talk about the votes, talk about all this stuff, but no real end goal. They had no entrenchment, they had no food, they had no sleeping bags, they had no resources, they had no anything prepared. They didn't this wasn't something that I think was thought out in any way, shape, or form to actually make a political statement or to make change. And if there's anything that we on the left should learn from this situation, is that we are the group that is supposed to be the ones planning things out, thinking things through, thinking of the details. You know, I watched the Proud Boys in the January 5th protests, how easily they were getting kettled by the cops. They have no idea what they're doing. They're all trying to be their own individual heroes in their own individual stories. I saw people dressed up as superheroes trying to, like, you know, storm the building as if they were contributing to justice. This is the reactionary position. It's act first, don't think. It's use confirmation bias in every single way possible. Ignore nuance, ignore details. And again, just attack first and question later. If you question at all. Action speaks first. This is what fascism looks like. This is how it responds to the world around it. By reacting. And so I don't have any sort of conclusion to all this, I guess, to make it coherent, because there is no coherency here. I guess I can also point out the fact that the position of the Trump administration was basically to finally go home after all this, and the protesters said this was their home. I can talk about the fact that, you know, at the end of the day, if white protesters storm the White House, it's fine. They're treated with kid gloves, but, you know, Breonna Taylor gets shot in her own home and isn't safe there, and the disparagingness of race in this country. I could talk about so many details, and I could go on and on and on about it. But at the end of the day, I need to walk away from this for a little bit and just think. And I think that's something we should all take away from this as well. We've taken in a lot of data. We've taken in a lot of information very quickly. It's time to think and to start having conversations about this. And start moving in the direction of forming something that we can actually work with. With that said, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and bell for notifications. You can follow me on Twitter and check out my Discord in the description down below. My name is Anarchist Tara, and I hope that I was able to give some of the nuanced perspective and start a conversation with all of this, and I hope you enjoyed watching.